Jeez. All right, we're coming up right on 11 a.m. Central Time here, so I'll give it a couple more moments to let people filter in, and then we'll get started. All right, we'll go ahead and dive in. I wanted to first off say good morning to most everybody that's on. Good afternoon to some. It's still morning here in Omaha, thankfully above 0 degrees today and actually above freezing. So it's a good day for the past 2 weeks. But we wanted to thank everybody for taking some time out of their super busy schedules right now. I know there's a lot of postponements, cancellations, and everything getting thrown on your guys' plates just to talk through everything that is current with marketing communications, especially at the NAIA level. So we have a stellar panel lined up today to discuss some great topics. So I wanted to thank you guys for joining us. And with that, we really encourage everyone joining us today to make sure that you guys ask questions throughout the discussion, as we'll make sure that we get them in front of our panelists at the end with some fun Q&A. So you can ask a question to a certain panelist if you want to, for the moderator or for the entire group. There should be a Q&A tab there on the bottom right-hand side. So feel free to send them our way throughout the discussion. So with that said, we're really excited for the opportunity to be able to host this panel today and can't thank the NAIA enough for their help. From now on, has been working with the NAIA as a sponsor for the past almost 3 years now as the exclusive mobile app solution of the NAIA and its institutions. We also host the Experience NAIA Championships app, which we encourage you to download if you haven't already, as there is going to be a very busy championship season, as you guys well know, right around the corner. We hope to see at least one of your teams in the championships app. So again, make sure to search for it in the App Store or the Google Play. With that said, I'd like to introduce our gracious moderator, Brad Seigan, who is obviously the Director of Athletic Communications within the NAIA. I'm sure most everybody knows who he is, but wanted to thank you, Brad, for being our moderator.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Also with that, I wanted to introduce our 3 panelists. Starting off, we have Rachel Moore, who's the Assistant Athletic Director and Director of Communications there at Central Methodist. Rachel, thank you for joining.
Thanks, Jeremy.
We also have Philip Dowden, the Associate Director of Athletics for External Ops there at Evangel University. Philip, thank you for joining as well.
All right, thanks.
And lastly, to round out the group, we have Andrew Herrick, the Athletics Operations Coordinator there at Lawrence Tech. Andrew, thank you for joining.
Thank you.
And with that said, I'm going to hand it off to our gracious moderator, Brad, who's going to take it over, and we'll dive into some of these discussion questions.
Thanks, Jeremy. This is one of these that I'm really looking forward to. So thanks for putting this together, and I hope that everyone's going to be able to get something out of this today. Well, the first question that we're going to go to is, how did your athletic department manage through the fall and now winter season? It's a crazy time, and everyone's trying to find a different way to kind of make it through. So I'm going to start by throwing this over to Andrew. Andrew, what have you guys been doing at Lawrence Tech to kind of manage through all this?
So we're in the state of Michigan. We've had one of the harder hit areas, Michigan and California, probably in the NAIA have been one of the hardest hit areas to kind of really be able to compete and everything. So we started practices back in August 15th. And Oregon. Sorry, I apologize, Samantha, and Oregon. But we started practices for our fall sports August 15th. And about 3 days later, we already had a team in quarantine and everything like that. So we did not compete until the end of September for fall sports. So in our conference, we are a member of the Wolverine Hoosier Athletic Conference. So we have mostly teams in the state of Michigan, but we also have Indiana Tech as well as Lords and UNOH. And so we were working through who's going to play, who's not going to play. And in the end, I believe we came down to 6 or 7 schools in the fall that were able to compete. So if we were able to compete and we were able to do it, we were going to do it. So we had soccer. We planned on having ice hockey. We are a member of the ACHA Ice Hockey Association, and we are one of the lone conferences in the NAIA that sponsors ice hockey as an official sport. So we were going to play ice hockey, but then that got canceled in the fall. We played soccer, we played volleyball. We were going to play football, but then it just wasn't feasible for us to play some games in the fall for football. So, I mean, it was interesting to say the least, playing pretty much the entire month of October and everything. And so from there, we headed towards basketball season. We got about 3 or 4 games in before our women's team had to quarantine, and then the state of Michigan as a whole shut down contact sports. And so we were pretty much on a hiatus until almost the end of January. Some conference opponents were able to compete in Indiana and Ohio, but pretty much everybody else within the state of Michigan and our conference were unable to compete at that time. So January 27th was our first official basketball game back. And last night we just finished up our regular season for basketball. Our conference tournament starts on Thursday. And I'll tell you, it's been a long road. It really has, from restarting till last night. It was a long road. Just trying to make sure that schedules are updated, things are correct, making sure that we're trying to do the right things and stuff like that. In the state of Michigan, the governor required for contact sports to do 3 times a week testing. So for us as a university and many of our NAIA counterparts, testing is super expensive. And so we worked through that piece and everything. Our hockey program restarted up. We were able to get a couple hockey games in, and now they're in quarantine right now. So, I mean, it's kind of been an up and down. Football was supposed to start back up for us on February 20th. And we had to postpone that, or we had to cancel that game due to weather. We had 10 inches of snow, and that's something that you don't really worry about when it's crossover season, when you have lacrosse and stuff like that, because you're just like, oh, we'll just go indoors. But now having 30-something teams compete all at the same time, it's been super chaotic. We also had golf competing in the fall, and that was probably one of the more successful pieces besides our soccer programs and everything. So, yeah, I mean, it's been a whirlwind. I'm in an interim role right now as our athletic communications director. So I've been learning on the fly this entire time and trying to understand things and trying to make sure that we have things done and stuff like that, along with my other role as athletic operations coordinator. So, yeah, but I mean, all of our SIDs within our conference have been amazing in helping everybody out and stuff like that. So,
That's amazing. You know, I've been doing a lot of research for the NAI on Michigan, and it's wild what's been going on. I don't know how you guys have handled it. And I look at it, and I also see just kind of the other side of the coin. The Heart of America has been playing nonstop throughout fall and was able to get their fall seasons in for the most part. Rachel, I see you nodding your head a lot throughout a lot of that. You've probably had to deal with so many just changes on the fly to your schedules and everything. How have you managed throughout all this?
Yeah, similar to Andrew, a lot of schedule changes, but for the most part, our commissioner, Lori Thomas, came out in the summertime, and, we kind of had a mutual agreement between all of our schools that, hey, we're going to play no matter what that looks like. And we got into it, and it was a little bit rough early on, just getting everyone back on campus and making sure testing was all lined out. And of course, when you get everyone on campus, of course, you have some of those bumps in the road. But to kind of prevent some of that, we had a delayed start as well with our sports. I don't think we started playing until September 5th. And then on September 12th was our first football game on the road. And so we had kind of numerous schedule changes from there on out, but we actually even reduced some of our schedules for the most part, just to make sure that we got conference play in, because with a lot of our with our conference in general, and Phil, you can touch on it too, we're so strong in so many different sports. Those are kind of the big, some of the, like those conference games are ones that we want to emphasize when we're playing. So those took a little bit more of a precedent in terms of what we got to play, but we knew going into conference tournaments that those were the games that were going to matter. We also developed the Heart Promise, which basically is a conference-wide initiative saying, like I said before, we're going to play no matter what. And then here's kind of our layout of what we want to send out to our fans in terms of messaging with visiting spectator protocols, and just trying to create a clear and concise message across the conference that we can share with our fan base. So, overall, most of our teams had some kind of stoppage in play, which is expected to happen with something like this. But, we're fortunate that we got a majority, I'd say at least 75% of our games in, and then most of our conference games, and then you had a few non-conference. But it was also helpful in the fact that, as fall sports are taking place, we've been talking with our winter and spring coaches, say, hey, make sure you guys take notes, because some of this stuff may be coming your way and they might not. I'm trying to think of the wording. I don't want to say they wouldn't get it, but it's hard to see until you're actually in there. So a lot of them were kind of taking notes and seeing, okay, here's what happened in the fall. I better be prepared. And sure enough, winter was pretty similar. So we're kind of preaching that to our spring coaches as well. Hey, you just need to be mindful of what your guys are doing, what your players are doing. That way we can get you guys completely through a spring season and we don't have a stoppage in play like last year. But overall, I mean, ups and downs, but we had a pretty good fall and winter. And I was pretty fortunate in my first year in this role that we made it through. So.
Awesome. I don't want to continue kind of going down this road because we've got a lot more to get to. But the next question I want to get to, if we could pull up, so there it is, right on time. The biggest communication or marketing challenge during COVID, and how have you responded? That's going to be something that everyone's going to have just something that they've had to overcome. But I actually want to go back to Rachel on that. Rachel, where are you at with one of your challenges, and how have you guys been trying to overcome those?
Yeah, the biggest challenge, I would say, we didn't have too much change in terms of the SID, some of the day-to-day communications. That was pretty consistent. But in terms of messaging, and we also rolled out our new ticketing platform in conjunction with our spectator protocol. So we kind of threw a 1-2 punch at our fan base saying, hey, here's our new ticketing software that we're rolling out. Here's how you guys are going to purchase all of your digital tickets. But then also at the same time, here are these spectator protocols that kind of list, who's able to come into games, what the limited number of fans looks like. And so displaying that messaging and making sure that our fans kind of understood what we were going for. And, we got a little bit of pushback because obviously in a season like this, if you've got seniors that aren't going to be coming back next year, obviously every fan or every parent, every family member wants to come to those games. But, and we get some of those kind of phone calls, but we essentially just had to, explain to them that say, we understand where you're coming from, but we as a result of what's happened, we've kind of upped our game in terms of our live stream quality. We've improved a lot of our camera angles, our streaming overall, and then also just telling them, the reason we're reducing these numbers and the reason we don't have as many is we want to make sure that your kids not only get a sports season, but that they can stay in school academically, because it's a 1-2 punch with the student athlete. And, NAIA is great in terms of what we do academically and athletically. So preaching that to them, making sure that they understood, we're not doing it to keep them away and to try to, split them up, but we're trying to make sure that their kids are taken care of both on the field or on the court and then in the classroom.
Great. I mean, it's so difficult to try to get consistent and just communication to all line up across all of your platforms. So, I mean, you guys do such a good job with that. Philip, same question to you. How have you guys been kind of overcoming some of these challenges?
Yeah, so for me in my role, a lot of the marketing and just the communication of when a game's happening, when a game's not happening, was incredibly difficult this year. The first thing I feel like was making sure people knew what the difference in a cancellation and a postponement was. That seems to be the biggest confusing thing to the public, is a cancellation versus a postponement. Whenever we reworked our schedules to kind of prioritize division play, people, were asking questions, well, are you not going to play this game? So being able just to get that communication out there was really key, and we were able to kind of blast it everywhere. The other thing was, dealing with a limited fan base in Springfield and kind of the heart, we were kind of, I don't want to say in a unique area, but we, each university was allowed kind of their own policies as far as spectators go, who allowed fans, who didn't allow fans. We had a limited capacity for outdoor sports in the fall, and then for our basketball season this winter. And it felt really weird, almost discouraging students from coming to games, discouraging people from coming to games. We would have, students participate in halftime sponsored activities, and now all of a sudden we're not doing that at all. So it was almost counterproductive, it felt like at times, trying to be able to go through that. But just over communicate, that was the biggest thing that I felt like here on campus and throughout our conference. We have a great conference of SIDs, a great conference leadership. We had a handful of, Zoom meetings, not every other month, but maybe every, twice a semester, maybe, I think. And just making sure people were on the same page. And, that was something we kind of preached, and over communicate, and how we were going to be able to navigate COVID and everything that went with it.
Philip, I want to stay with you for our next question, because I think it's what you guys do down at Evangel is always fun to watch. But what are some ways that COVID has helped your department to innovate or be creative when it comes to communicating or reaching your fans?
So we implemented online ticketing this year, and we implemented a new mobile app from now on. And really, that was kind of, I'd take a step back. We started the online ticketing last year with football, kind of as a test run. And really that prepared us really well for being able to handle that this year with football. And then we moved it into basketball during the winter sports. So being able to get that communication out there, we got so many compliments from people saying, hey, welcome to this century. Whenever people would show up at the game. So being able to blast that out in the different ways. And then our mobile app was a huge success. Being able to get information with the push notifications. That was one thing that we sat down and we looked at, and just thinking of how our students, how our fans, and trying to get them to check their emails. Awesome. Trying to draw people to your social media is fantastic. Trying to get them to your website is great in theory and all, but that push notification of being able to get people the update right then and right there of, hey, this game's canceled. I'm trying to remember what sport it was, but we had a sport that actually got canceled 30 minutes before our women's soccer team got on the bus. And it was, due to a quarantine issue. And how do you get that information out there? And so that was another way. We made a lot of improvements this year and really invested in our online streaming. And so being able to invest our online streaming and integrate that into the mobile app, and then our Heart network that we are able to utilize through Blue Frame. It was really exciting to see that grow this year, and the positive comments. We were able to have fans most of the season for all of our sports in some capacity. So being able to share that with visiting fans, parents that live, far away and weren't able to come, older people in our community that weren't able to come out to games that in all reality probably didn't need to be at games during, these times. It was really exciting to do that. And then the last thing was we reevaluated a lot of our printing and digital needs, and we saw a lot of printing kind of not necessarily die, but we saw a lot of things that we would print, we repurposed those. And so where we were constrained with a certain size from a piece of paper, we were able to, think, how can that fit horizontally on a phone? How can that fit vertically on a phone? And we, just rethought how we did a lot of things digitally. And so, posters, getting our game programs out into people's hands, because if someone's watching a game on the stream, you don't have a game program, but to be able to get those to fans and parents digitally, that was pretty exciting this year to be able to come up with.
Love that you brought that up. A couple of things that really just are things that we do at the national office as well. The push notifications from the From Now On app are outstanding. The Experience NAIA Championships app we use, the last time we had a baseball national championship was now a couple years ago, but it was great for rainouts and things like that, or rain delays, I should say, a lot more. But this year we're putting our programs in the app. And, we may be selling hard copies at some of our events, but for the same reasons you mentioned, we want to make sure that gets right into people's hands. And another thing we started doing is using the push notifications for other promotions. We're promoting things that we have traditionally done a lot on Twitter and Instagram. We're now putting into the app. So we're putting the top plays videos out as a notification on the app, and we're doing voting for top play of the month. So I'm going to do a quick plug. If you haven't downloaded the Experience NAIA Championships apps, do it, because we are doing some fun things like that, and it's only going to get better as the championships come up. So with that, I want to go to another question, and we're going to talk about how you've been able to leverage your digital communications platforms through COVID. Andrew, I'm going to ask you that. I'm going to let you kind of tackle that one to start.
Yeah, so we have a partnership with Yellow Flag Productions, which is a local media company here in Michigan. They're actually literally 20 feet from my office. So it makes it actually really nice to just be able to walk over and talk with them. But they're kind of our digital gurus, essentially. They do all of our streaming for us, any graphic pieces that we may need, digital programming, stuff like that. So we have a weekly show that we produce and put out that is essentially a smaller version of SportsCenter. So it kind of goes over the entire week and stuff like that, and everything of what's happened in our sports and all that. So it shows highlights. We do interviews and different things like that. We've started a podcast called Blue Devil in Depth, that it's essentially one of our student reporters asking questions to student athletes and getting some inside information that you might not be able to get, which started rolling back out. I mean, we've been more cognitive of putting updates on our game day live Twitter. So whether it's away games or home games or whatever, we've been more cognitive of getting those updates out there and letting the fans know, like, hey, if you want live updates, this is where you guys need to go right now. We have an app coming in April from now on, so we're excited about that partnership, and it really will help out our fan experience as well as just getting information in general out to our parents and stuff like that. You know, our streaming, we increased and made our streaming better. Right now we do game of the weeks where we do courtside views and stuff like that, similar to something you might find at a Division I basketball game or something you might find at other NAIA institutions, whatever. So, I mean, we've really tried to push everything through our social media channels. We have our live streams now restreaming on every single social media piece that we have. So whether it's Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, from our website, whatever, we have it all streaming now. So now our fans can't say, hey, I can't find the link, even though that did happen last night with our basketball game. So, but I mean, we've really done that. You know, like Phil said, we've cut down on our printing across the board. I mean, we were buying 250 posters for footballs and fall season and winter and spring, and we've essentially gone away from that, and we've said digital posters. You know, here it is. You can download it if you want for your desktop or your phone or whatever you need, and there it is. We've been fanless, so that is something that we haven't really had to worry about. But going further into that, it has been interesting though you put out social media blast, hey, we're fanless, but yet you still have fans show up. So that's kind of been something that we've tried to work through in the fall. In the wintertime, that really wasn't a problem, but in the fall that was for us. So we tried to think of different ways in which we can communicate that information. You know, so I mean, our digital presence has been much better than it had been ever in the past, and everything. And we were already working on that prior to the pandemic, and since the pandemic has hit, it's been better. I will say though that it was hard for us when we were shut down from November till January to have content for our live or for our show that we put out every week and everything. So we actually kind of stopped putting our show out for a couple of weeks just because there was nothing, and we couldn't continue to say, hey, here's another highlight reel of stuff from last season, you know, or and stuff like that. So.
No, that's great. And one of the points you made in terms of, you know, things that you've been able to kind of move in a different direction, the printing and being able to save some money. And that kind of leads me into the fifth question here about what you feel will stick as we come to the other side. Oh, we're going to go to sponsors. Oh, there we go. Okay. We'll go to the sponsors first. But let's go ahead and talk about, you know, what does your athletic department sell or fulfill sponsors, and who's responsible for that? I want to ask Philip on that, because I think you guys are doing a lot out of your office in those terms.
Yeah, so that's directly my office, kind of a role that was developed over the summer for myself. I've been primarily responsible for it since I got here 5 years ago, excuse me. But it's just kind of continued to grow, and that helps supplement our athletics budget for everything that we do, whether it's, you know, live streaming, or whether it's game environment, whether it's printing needs, or whether it's staffing. All of that kind of helps fill that role. But the two big things that I was able to leverage with our sponsors this year was our mobile app and our live streaming. You know, not knowing if we're going to have fans in the stands, in stadium signage people were kind of like, are you going to have people in the stands? And I said, hey, here's a way that you're going to get in front of not just the fans that are in the stadium, but grandma, aunt, and uncle that live in California that want to watch little Johnny play football or soccer or whatever the case may be. And even if it's just someone that's going to tune in for one time, they've downloaded our app. Anytime they're curious, it may either lead to a fan for life. It may lead to another, sort of sponsorship. And it was probably, I won't say the easiest thing to sell, but it was one of the easier things that I've sold during my time here. We had a car dealership in town who does a lot of stuff with us. And I showed them the views on our schedule pages for, how many people are going to see what the schedules are. And I said, that's always super incredibly important. We were able to embed their logo in a couple spots on our schedule. And then we have a bank here in town that does a lot of work with us. They wanted to be the title sponsor, and they were a little frustrated that the schedule page was actually already sold. And I probably should have sold that at a higher rate than the title sponsor, now that I'm kind of thinking about that in hindsight, because the amount of views that page gets is just incredible. And then being able, on the video streaming, we embed our streaming in the app, and it's right there on the first card. It's impossible to miss, along with kind of our fan policies right now, which I hope go away soon. But those are, the first two things that you see whenever that pops up. So, those sponsors that are present on our mobile app are right there and getting as much play as anybody that would be inside the stadium, maybe even more. And our regional sponsors that kind of bleed into other parts of the state where we have other, universities, they're extremely happy with that and love seeing that. There's a lot of other sponsorship opportunities that I keep trying to sell. I've got a couple people that are actually interested to talk to tomorrow, Thursday, I think. So it's been a lot of fun. It's added a new element to my job that's a lot of fun, and the maintenance and keep up on it is incredibly low. So it's been something new that's kind of reinvigorated, what we do at Evangel.
Awesome. Rachel, same question to you.
Thanks, Brad. Yeah, kind of just touching on what Phil said in terms of my role. We essentially, it's kind of my job to implement some of those sponsorship fulfillments throughout the year. And one of the biggest ones that we've really sold this year, especially with not having as many fans at our games, is going to be your live streaming. So with that, when we've been talking to sponsors, one of the biggest things is that, we're going to have a rotating logo that's on every single football game stream or basketball game, depending on what game we're looking at or what you're asking for. And we've actually, I worked with, he's actually a CMU alum. His name is Charlie Brown, and he has been great in terms of his knowledge of Blue Frame and live streaming. And I can kind of just give him a set of logos that I've gotten, said, hey, Charlie, can we run these, during a timeout, or can you shout out these sponsors during your stream? He's like, yep, no problem. And I've actually learned quite a lot from him in terms of what you can do on live streaming. And that's, really been beneficial for our sponsors. And then one of the biggest things that comes to mind is we hosted the inaugural Women's Wrestling Conference Championships this past Saturday. And we had been discussing, when we put those logos up, or if we've got signage in the building, because we only had 2 mats going, is there a way that we can place some of our bigger sponsors kind of in the background so you can see them? And then just pulling some of those numbers, I think we ended up having, it was around 1,100 people tuning in for the inaugural Women's Conference Championship at our place, which was great. So with that, and us being kind of in a regional area, you've got sponsors that now have got recognition, not only in Missouri, but also in Kansas and Iowa. So in terms of what we've done sponsors wise, a lot of it has been streaming, kind of updating everything on there, but then also looking at what we can do on the app as well in future, if we can plug in some of those sponsors in the app, or if we can even plug them in on our website. I know we've had a couple of sponsors reach out saying, hey, I don't really need any kind of recognition. If you can just put our link to this event or our logo, that's all we really want. So Overall, a lot of it's been streaming and website based, but we've kind of had to get creative with what we've been doing. But sponsors seem pretty happy for the most part, and I think this is going to be a great stepping stone, not only for this year, but going into next year and years to come, of course, of what we can ask for and what they want in terms of a sponsorship partner agreement.
So when we look at different sponsors and kind of what this year has brought us, leading us into the final question here, we look at the national office about, what is going, like what efficiencies we're finding this year in terms of money and using digital more. The app has been a big part of that. That's something that Brett Iliff and Dan Robinson and I have been talking about a lot, about how we're going to fulfill sponsors on that in a year that people aren't going to be printing as much. But so we're looking at ways that maybe we can modernize and maybe not do as much printing and save some money there. So Rachel, I want to go back to you in terms of what you feel is going to stick as we come to the other side of COVID.
Yeah, I think for me, one thing kind of just internally is the amount of over communication that it has taken, not only with myself and kind of our office, but also with other athletic communications professionals across our conference. I think we're going to do even more of that now. I think prior to COVID, there was kind of a set schedule in terms of how things would get put out and how things would get released. And we kind of had a little bit of a routine, and we may not have necessarily had to communicate quite as much. But I think with COVID and, timing of releases and when things are getting postponed, canceled, we've had to do more communication within kind of our conference SIDs to make sure that we're kind of all on the same page. So that's one thing that I think is going to stick. And I'm proud to say that it is, because we've got such a great group of SIDs across the board. And then, I think the app is going to be a big thing too. We launched in July, and so people are just kind of starting to see what we're about, as well as the digital ticketing, which I think digital ticketing is probably going to stick around, and we're probably going to emphasize that more. So purchase your tickets ahead of time and then come to the game, and it's kind of easier access for you guys to come in. But then going back to the app, fans, when it's game day, they want to know what's happening right now. So kind of those push notifications and, just clicking right into the app, and everything you have right there is ready to go. You don't need to go searching for links or streams. It's kind of all right there. So I think we'll emphasize more of that this year, or we have emphasized more of that. And then continuing on to next year, we kind of want to put everything, I would say, in one spot, so fans can kind of just grab it at the touch of a hat, and then, they're ready to go.
Awesome. Well, that concludes our pre-populated questions, but we want to throw it to you guys. I know we've already got a few questions in the Q&A, so make sure you still add more and more questions in there. We'll try to get to them as quick as we can, but I'm going to throw it to Jeremy and let Jeremy kind of work our way through some of these questions.
Thanks, Brad. Yeah, I appreciate it. So I'll just throw this out to the group, and if one or a couple of you guys want to take it, including Brad, you're more than welcome to. So the first one that came in is for those athletic departments that have played games. How did you handle and overcome mask enforcement?
Yeah, I'll take that one. I'm not sure if my athletic director is on here or not today, but he proudly wore that badge as the masked police officer most of the season. So, but a lot of it was ADs and SIDs communicating with each other. I think I laughed whenever Brad asked Rachel, and the first thing she said that's going to stick is communication. And over communicating was the word I wrote down as well. And I think, our peer institutions in the conference and across the NAIA just continuing to communicate with each other, and hey, this is what we're doing here, whether it's going up in the stands and just saying, hey, we need to make sure we've got our mask on today. And this is where print signage definitely came in handy for us, where we saved money. We printed a lot of A-frames, signs on doors and windows. Masks are required for entry. There's going to be a lot of tape to tear down whenever this goes away, but that's probably the biggest thing is, not being rude, but definitely not being afraid to go and confront people as well. So, kind of a twofold approach of signage and then just talking to people.
Yeah, I'm with you, Phil. And again, a common theme of what we've talked about is over communicating that too. And I know it's a touchy subject. It can be very much. And so just trying to be as positive and kind and saying, hey, this is for everybody as well. And so that's a great answer. About sponsorship too. So when you offered these digital advertising, streaming app, website, what have you, were you pitching those to current sponsors that already had space, like the video board or in venue, or were you pitching those first to new businesses that you were able to solicit?
Everybody. I'm a student of the upsell, and so all of our current sponsors, I brought it to the table to everybody. Now I was smart, if we've got someone that, is a couple $100 or, we're really low level sponsorship. We've got a florist here in town and we buy flowers from them for senior days and we don't spend a ton of money with them. I wasn't going to bother them with it. We really hit restaurants hard. We do a lot of trade out with them, but any of the ones that gave us cash, I made sure to bring it to them. And then anytime I've got a sponsor that reaches out to me as a newbie or as someone I'm reaching out to for the first time, it's on the first page of, my one sheeter that I bring to them. So I explain how important it is for us. I explain how important it is to them. And nobody's off limits, whether you're an existing sponsor that's been with us, for 10 or 12 years before my time, or if you're a new business in town that, just started last month. They're all getting a similar pitch when it comes to the digital, the mobile app and the live streaming sponsorships. Now I'm definitely going to tailor it, to different people, but nobody's immune from that.
Right. Rachel, anything you want to add to that? Because I know you help out a little bit.
Yeah, I'd just say, most of our, being in a town of, I think, only 3,000 or 4,000 people, we've got kind of a set sponsor list of groups in town that we kind of hit in terms of, what we can offer them. But we've bumped up a lot of that too, kind of what Phil has said. We've offered more in terms of live streaming, in terms of what we place, where they place their logos throughout the facilities. And so, I think at some point we're going to kind of reach out maybe a little bit further, but for now we've kind of stayed in-house, but we've definitely tried to say, maybe we can't give you guys as much logo or ad space on a program because we don't print it as much, but maybe we can do that digitally somehow, or maybe we can incorporate them into some game day graphics. And so I think a lot of them have been pretty responsive to that, because at the end of the day, they just want to make sure that their logo and their product is out there for fans to see. And so that's kind of what we try to do, from a sponsorship standpoint.
Nice. Yeah. And I'm sure that pitch is going to change, depending on who you're talking to, what product or what service they have to provide, how long they've been a sponsor, are they used to getting the same thing year in and year out? But I think it's all on the ROI. What are they trying to get, out to their fans? Is it just exposure? Is it more in depth? That can go a lot of directions. The last question I'll ask is, how many of you guys are charging for your broadcasts? Is it sport by sport? Is it conference? How does that work for you guys? I can't speak to Andrew, but I know in the heart, we're right now, I think, the only school that charges for our broadcast. We charge based upon kind of the level of broadcast that we're putting out there. So for football games and for basketball games, we've got a multi-camera setup, and we actually have a regional television company here in Southwest Missouri that comes and produces I don't know off the top of my head, but a handful of games for football and two games a month for basketball. So we're getting a regional TV, broadcast for some of those games. And then what we do in-house as well is also a multi-stream game for those sports with a broadcaster, graphics package, everything. So we feel like that's worth charging for, and there's value in that. So yeah, we charge for those. For baseball, softball, soccer, volleyball,
we try to have a broadcaster as many times as we can, but it's not guaranteed. We don't have lights on our baseball and softball fields. So if I'm in a meeting and I can't, broadcast a game, or don't have a student that can do it because we're playing at a noon, first pitch, we're just going to throw that up for free. And really it's a level of consistency. So since there is no consistency with that, we allow those games to be streamed for free. And we got zero pushback at all. None whatsoever. I take that back. I had a few kind of nasty messages on social media for our very first football game of the season. And then they saw it happened to be one of our TV games, and they saw the quality of broadcast, and I actually got an apology. So that may be the first in history of social media. But yeah, so it's been kind of pick and choose what we're going to do, but it's been really positive.
Good. And I lied. I got one more question for you guys. And so with sports coming back, and maybe you're not allowed to have fans, limited capacity, and especially on the student population side, you're obviously still trying to get them engaged. Do any of you guys have any tips on how to keep your student population engaged, with sporting events that are going on, even if they're not allowed to come? So that way you don't lose them. Any digital things that you're doing, engagement things during the stream or anything of that nature?
We haven't done a whole lot with that because we've been able to have fans here. I did see something the other day, and I don't remember the school off the top of my head, but they took the idea of kind of the fan cam that you would see on a jumbotron of a sporting event from anybody with the jumbotron, not necessarily a Power 5, but a mid-major professional teams that do that. But they had fans submit photos and pictures, and then the next game they would create a video and they would play that. It was hard to obviously do that live, so they went through and did that. But I'd be interested. I don't think it would be super hard to receive messages on Twitter, and post those into your video. But that's one thing that I've seen. I'd be curious how to do that. We've also got and now I may be rambling as we're getting close to the end of the time, but we've got digital video TV screens throughout campus, and being able to, solicit those videos from students as a reminder, hey, get your fan picture in for tonight's game, might be an idea as I'm writing this down. So
I think social media is another great way to do that. Just saying, hey, make sure you discuss that and send it out too. So perfect. Well, yeah, I know that we're coming up on time. So with that, we just wanted to, again, thank everybody for joining today, including the attendees, our panelist group especially, and of course, Brad, the moderator. Be sure to keep an eye out for the SCORE newsletter from the NAIA that's going out later today, as we will have some updated content typically in each one, including this afternoon. So there will be some great ways in that newsletter to contact myself or anyone on this panel to talk through just mobile solutions as a whole. So that way we can help your schools during this time as well. That could be more of just an open discussion on what your goals are and how we can continually help support, or we can dive in much further than that too. So we're excited to continually grow within the NAIA with the institutions we're currently working with and the new ones we're currently building out, like Andrew at Lawrence Tech. You can, like I said, suggest go out to the App Store, download an app or two. If you search Evangel Crusaders Game Day or Central Methodist Athletics, you'll be able to find them. And then as Brad plugged in, don't forget to download the Experience NAIA Championships app, as we hope to see at least one of your teams in it this spring. Thanks again, though, for joining. Have a great rest of the week, and we really look forward to hopefully seeing you guys in person in the future at a future event. So thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.